Good morning, children. Now we will discuss the next topic of the chapter, that is the church and the society. So here we will discuss how the church affected the society and how the church used to play an important role in the society. That we will be discussing in this topic. And you can see that Christmas and Easter became important dates from the 4th century onward. So these were the two festivals which are associated with Christianity. They were celebrated from 4th century onward with great pomp and show. Christ's birth celebrated on 25th December, as we celebrate Christmas Day on 25th December. Earlier it used to be a pre-Roman festival. So this is not associated with Christianity initially. It used to be a pre-Roman festival, and later on this festival was given the name as the birthday of Christmas. So the date of the 25th December is calculated with the help of the solar calendar. So this is a solar calendar, a solar based festival. Second festival is Easter, mark the crucifixion of the Christ and his rising from the dead. This is generally celebrated in April, and this also replaced an older festival which was celebrated with the coming of the spring after a long dreary winter, and it is calculated with the help of the lunar calendar. So one festival, that is 25th December, that is considered to be the birth date of Christ, that is celebrated in December, and it is calculated with the help of the solar calendar. And another festival, that is Easter, that is celebrated with the help of the lunar calendar. So these are the two important festivals, and these two festivals were not earlier associated with the Christianity, rather they were associated with pre-Roman festivals, and later on they were associated with the Christianity. And you can see that here in the bubble it is written Paris, the area under supervision of a priest. So there used to be the church, and the church was given an estate and a particular area where they could uh, command the people as far as their religion is concerned. So that area which was under the supervision of a priest, and that area was called the Paris, and later on Paris became the capital of France. So the name of the capital of the France, that is Paris, it has come from the older word Paris, which was used for an area which was generally supervised by a priest. Now you can see that here it is written as the Canterbury Tales. So what was Canterbury Tales? Canterbury Tale was the poem which was written by Geoffrey Chaucer, and Geoffrey Chaucer was the earliest poet of English literature, and he is also known by the name of the rising star of English literature. So Canterbury Tales is a tale which is of generally the pilgrims who used to go for the pilgrimage. So this is a poem about them, like we can read like that. When in April the sweet showers fall, and the pears the drought of the marsh to the root, and the small birds are making melody that sleep away night with open eyes. Means this tells us about the coming of spring after a long winter season, that how people start acting and how they become active after a long winter season. So nature pricks them and their heart engage. So it's a favorable weather condition. As a result, people start enjoying the day-to-day life after coming of the spring. Then people also go for a long pilgrimage because the climate is quite favorable in this season. So they used to go for a pilgrimage, and generally these pilgrimage used to be the pilgrimage to the abbeys and different cathedrals which were constructed at that time. And farmers means those who used to walk on foot, long to seek the foreign shrines of far off saints. So they used to go to the place where the saints used to live, means the abbeys, and revered in various lands, and especially from every shire, means every part of England. People used to go to the Canterbury, and they used to make their journey to the place, that is the Canterbury. And this is the Geoffrey Chaucer. He tells us about the luxury and the comfort which was later enjoyed by the priest and the people, or though like the monks and nuns who used to live in these abbeys. So abbeys became a part of corruption later on. It had become a center of corruption later on. So this poem is all about that. Now we will read about the third order, that is the peasants, free and unfree. So far we discussed about the first order, that is the clergy. We have discussed about the knights and lords. Now we are going to discuss the third most important part of this topic, that is the third order, and it is about the peasants. And the peasants were of two kinds, that is the free peasants and unfree peasants. So cultivators were of two kinds, free and unfree, and this is a village scene. You can see that people are performing various sort of activities in this village. Some are digging the ditches, some are doing some other kind of work, some women are weaving, some are doing household chores. So these kind of activities used to be performed by the people, by the common people in that time. Now we will discuss about the free peasants. So free peasants used to be free. They were given the land by the lord, and they used to hold the farm of the lord as a tenant, and they used to work in that farm, and they are also supposed to do the military service for at least 40 days in a year, and they used to be working as the foot soldier in the army of the lord. Peasants' families had to set aside certain days of the week to go to the lord's estate. It means throughout the week, some days they have to keep for the lord and his family, where they used to go to the lord's family, lord's houses, lord's factories, as well as their field, and they used to work for the lord. And whatever output used to be there from their work, that was directly go to the lord's house, and that was called the labor rent. So what was the labor rent? Labor rent was that rent which was the outcome which was done by the free labor by these peasants in the house of the lord, as well as in the field of the lord. Other unpaid works were also done by these people, like the digging of ditches, gathering firewood, building fences, repairing roads and buildings. Besides, their women and children also used to do the work for the lord and his family. Generally they used to work in the houses of the lords, their factories, their wine pressing mills. So that kind of the job which was done by the female as well as the children of the peasants' family. Now what the females of the free peasants used to do, how they used to provide services to the lord and his family. So from this picture you can see that there are two women and they are doing the knitting and weaving work. So generally they used to do such kind of the light jobs for the lord and his family. So generally they used to spend their time in making threads, spinning threads, weaving clothes, and they used to make candles. They used to press grapes to prepare the wine for the lord and his family. There was one direct tax which was generally imposed upon the peasant and his family, and that tax was the tithe. Generally this was imposed by the kings sometimes on the peasants to levy taxes from the peasants so that they can maintain their army and other expenditure. The clergy and the nobles were exempted from this kind of the tax, that is called tithe. So tithe was the tax which was generally imposed upon the peasant, and this was a land tax which was supposed to be paid by the third estate only, that the third order only. So first and second order, that was the clergy and the nobles, were not paying this kind of tax, and the poorest of the poor used to be the peasants, and they were supposed to pay this kind of the tax. So such kind of oppression used to be there on the part of the peasants by the king as well as by the nobles. Now what was the lifestyle of the unfree peasants? They were called by the name of the serf, and the word serf itself has come from the word serve. So they used to provide services to the lord, that's why they used to be called the serf. And they were unfree peasants, they were not the free peasants. They were not given the land by the lord, and they can cultivate freely whatever they like. So this kind of facility was not given to this kind of the peasants. They also had to work on the land which belonged exclusively to the lord. So they generally were working on the land which were these lands used to be of the lords. They received no wages and could not leave the estate without the lord's permission. So there were certain other restrictions generally which was imposed upon these unfree peasants. They could not leave the place without the permission of the lord. They could not leave the estate without the permission of the lord. So their life was tightly controlled by the lord and his rules. Serfs could use only their lord's mills to grind their flour, his own to bake their bread and his wine press to distill wine and beer. So they can make use of the infrastructure or the factories and other things which were meant for the lords. So they can also meet their daily necessity from those institutions like the mills and the wine presses, and they can get also their share from there, and it was generally free of cost. So this kind of facility was also provided by the lord to these people. So generally daily necessities were given to these people by the lord, but they were not having the freedom to move anywhere. The lord could decide whom a serf should marry, or might give his blessing to the serf's choice, but on the payment of a fee. Means serfs were not able to marry according to their will. If they want to marry somebody, they have to take permission from the lord, and lord's blessings was necessary to legitimize that kind of marriage, and for that legitimacy the lord had to pay a fee, and this fee was generally paid by these unfree peasants. So their life was much miserable than the free peasants. Now, what were the factors which affected the social and economic relation between the peasant as well as the lord? So what changes took place with the passage of time, that we will be discussing over here. First of all, the environment. What changes took place in the environment? From the 10th century, most of Europe covered with vast forest, thus the land available for agriculture was limited. So it was a cold age and maximum area was covered with the forest. The climate was also not suitable in which the cultivation can be done. From the 11th century, Europe entered into a warm phase, means the climate became more suitable for the cultivation of crop. Average temperature increased, which had a profound effect on agriculture. Now the agriculture season was prolonged, so the agriculture production was also increased. As a result, the forest area was cleared and agricultural field was carved out from those forests, and they started cultivating those areas also. Peasants now had a longer growing season, and their crops were also less subjected to the frost. Frost is a condition where snow is generally covered the crop. As a result, the growth of the crop is stopped. So that kind of situation was not there, and the land also became quite suitable for the plowing. Earlier plowing was very difficult in the cold season. Environment historians have noted that there was significant receding of the forest line in many parts of Europe. So this led to the increase in the agricultural area, and forest got receded, they start decreasing. So forest area was decreased. As a result, the agricultural land was increased. So this situation was the favorable situation as far as the agriculture is concerned, and this led to the prosperity of the noble as well as the peasant. Now, what kind of the land use was there at that time? Initially, agriculture technology was very primitive. They used to do the primitive subsistence farming with the old primitive tools. It was done, and the only mechanical aid which was available at that time, that was the wooden plough, and the shear of the wooden plough could not scratch the land much deeper, and that was also fetched by the that was also drawn by the team of oxen. This plough could at best scratch the surface of the earth and was unable to fully draw out the natural productivity of the soil. So the wooden plowshare could not scratch the land much deeper. As a result, the minerals which used to be there in the lower strata of the soil could not come out with the wooden plowshare. As a result, they used to scratch only the top layer of the soil. Agriculture was therefore very labor intensive. It would required a lot of labor on the part of the peasant, and they remained generally busy in this kind of activities only, so they could not cultivate much larger area. Fields had to be divided in half. One field was planted in autumn and another was planted in the winter. So in autumn they generally used to cultivate rye, and in winter they used to cultivate the wheat, and these are the food grain crops. So the entire field was divided into two parts. You can see that this is part 1 and this is part 2. Here it is grown as the barley, and in another part it is grown the wheat. Both are the cereal crops, grain crops, and uh, one part left uncultivated for at least 6 months so that it can regain its fertility. So that was the primitive method which was applied by the peasants at that time. With this system, the soil slowly gets deteriorated because the land was not getting much time to regain its fertility. It was kept uncultivated only for 6 months or less. So the soil started losing its fertility and it became totally unfertile. As a result, the agricultural production also dropped down. And this resulted in the famine-like situation, means the peasants and his family and other people were also not getting proper diet at that time because food shortage started emerging over there. Now, that was the condition in which the production of the land was minimized, the income was also minimized, the farmer was living in a harsh condition, in a difficult situation. Still, the Lord was very anxious to maximize their income because this also resulted in the loss of the income of the Lord. But the Lord wanted to maximize his income. As a result, he started forcing the peasant to bring under cultivation all the manorial estate. So the manorial estate was also divided into many parts, like some part was kept for the winter, some was kept for the autumn, as well as a large portion of the manorial estate was kept as the forest area where the Lord used to do the hunting, and some portion of that estate was kept as the pasture land where the animals used to be grazed. So this forest and pasture land was converted into the agricultural field. And why it was converted? Because the peasants were forced by the Lord. And why Lord was forcing? Because he could not maintain his expenditure now, because his income reduced considerably. So he wanted to maximize his income. So there was a lot of pressure upon the peasants. The peasants did not go quietly to operation. They could not speak in front of the Lord, but they started revolting or rebelling in their own way. They could not protest openly, and they resorted to the passive resistance. Means they started resisting the Lord's order in a passive manner which was not visible from outside. They are also avoiding performing unpaid extra service to the Lord's farm. It means in a week they used to spend some days in the Lord's farm, but now they started working more in their own field, and they used to give less time to the Lord's field. As a result, they could not provide full service to the Lord. So that was a kind of resistance which was undertaken by these peasants. They came into conflict with the Lords over pasture and the forest land. So pasture land and forest land was the common land where the animals of the peasants as well as the Lords used to be grazed. But now Lord started saying that this land entirely belongs to the Lords and only the Lord's animal could be grazed. So upon this situation, there used to be a continuous conflict between the peasant and the Lord. Now, what changes took place from which the agriculture started increasing after the 11th century or 10th century? By the 11th century, there is evidence of technological changes. So what technological changes were brought by the peasant so that the land could be cultivated to the maximum level? First of all, introduction of heavy iron tipped plough. So the ploughshare which was made up of the wooden earlier, it was replaced with the iron tipped ploughshare which could scratch the ground much deeper than the wooden ploughshare, and mould boards that was also attached with the plough so that it can also mix up the minerals well in the soil, and this was a better technology than the previous. As a result, now the production increased. Second, harnessing of animal to the plough improved. Instead of the neck harness, they started harnessing the animal through the shoulder. You can see from the image, this is an oxen which is harnessed with the neck. You can see from the neck it has been harnessed. As a result, it could not carry much load and it could not apply much force because generally it created a problem in his neck. Then they started harnessing the oxen or other animals from their shoulder, and now they can apply more force and they can work much harder than the previous time. So that was also a better way to harness the animal. So they were better shod nowadays. Horses were now better shod with iron horseshoes. Generally, horses were used for cultivation. So while working in the field, their foot used to be decaying. As a result, they started using the horseshoes so that the decay of their foot could be stopped. Now, through the image you can understand what technological changes was applied by the peasants at that time upon the plough. So this was the traditional plough. Having a wooden plowshare, it could not scratch much deeper into the ground. This is another plough and it was modified. You can see that there is a iron tip plowshare. It could dig much deeper than the wooden plowshare. Secondly, you can see that these are the mold boards, and these mold boards used to mix up well the soil which is scratched by the wooden plow by the iron tips plowshare, and that land was mixed up by these mold boards so that the minerals could be better mixed in the soil, and that was good for the agriculture as well as for the cultivation of crops. Now the two field system of crop that we discussed, that one part of the land was kept for the autumn season and generally barley or rye used to be cultivated, and another part was left for the wheat that used to be cultivated in the winter season. So there was two field system earlier. So here is a comparison what changes took place after the 11th century. First of all, you can see that in a year crops used to be grown in the half of the land and half land used to be left fallow. The next year this land was left fallow, in which the land the crops was cultivated in the previous year, and the next land was left cultivated. So that was the two field system. Now what was the three field system? You can see that wheat and rye was grown in one field. In the second field it was grown in the spring season oats, barley, and the third part was left blank or it was left uncultivated. The next year the first part where wheat and rye was grown, that was left uncultivated. Second was used for the wheat and rye. So the wheat and rye which was grown in the first part, now it has been grown in the second part. So this led to the crop rotation, and with this crop rotation the soil was not losing its fertility. As a result, it also increased in the rising production in agricultural field. So this was the technological changes was brought by the peasants in the 11th century. So all this led to the agricultural production, and agricultural production increased considerably in this time.